My friend, let me speak directly to the ache inside you. Have you ever wondered why you feel so empty after giving so much of yourself away? Have you asked why your prayers seem to echo back in silence while your heart longs for a shift? What if I told you this moment is not random, but divinely arranged? You didn't stumble here by accident. Heaven led you to this very place, to this very word, because your soul has been crying out for change. This is not just another Christian motivational message. This is a call to a spiritual awakening that will lead you out of exhaustion and into breakthrough. Together, we are going to reclaim your energy, guard your focus, and step boldly into the abundance God already wrote with your name. Imagine what it would feel like to finally walk free of toxic patterns, to live with clarity and joy, and to experience peace that settles your spirit like guided meditation in God's presence. That peace is not far, it is here, and it is yours. You are not just surviving, you are stepping into unstoppable purpose. If you are ready to rise into that, then subscribe to Spiritual Journals and turn on the notifications, because this is where chosen ones gather to heal, grow, and spread the word of God across the world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening with your whole heart, and thank you for allowing this moment to speak into your life. Stay close, because what's coming next may be the very answer you've been waiting for.
Reclaiming what's been draining you. Chosen one, let me speak to the ache in your soul. You have given and given until your cup ran dry. You've poured into people who took, but never poured back. You've stretched yourself thin, trying to keep peace, trying to prove your worth, trying to hold together what God already asked you to release. And somewhere along the way, you forgot that your energy is sacred. You forgot that your presence is a gift. You forgot that your heart was never meant to be trampled under the weight of others' expectations. But hear me clearly, it is not selfish to set boundaries, it is holy. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." That means when you let the wrong people drain you, you starve the very place God wants to fill with life. Heaven is whispering to you right now, reclaim your energy. Stop giving what was never meant to be wasted. What God is preparing requires strength, and He is calling you to rise, not to run on empty. I know what it feels like because I have walked in those shoes. I have loved too deeply where love was not honored. I have said yes when my spirit was screaming no. And I remember how tired my soul felt, like carrying invisible chains no one else could see. But then God reminded me of Elijah under the broom tree, weary, ready to give up. And what did God do? He sent an angel with food and rest. He didn't rebuke Elijah for being tired. He restored him. That's what God wants to do for you. Restore you so you can walk in your purpose with strength, not depletion. Rest is not laziness. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are obedience to the God who says you are worth protecting. You see, personal growth doesn't happen when you're constantly drained. Growth comes when you make space for God to breathe new life into you. Sometimes that means saying no to the familiar, even when it feels hard. Sometimes it means stepping back from relationships that always demand but never give. And sometimes it simply means pausing long enough to remember that you are a child of the Most High, not a doormat for people's convenience. Jesus himself often withdrew from the crowds to pray. He left the noise to reconnect with his Father. If the Son of God needed space to rest and restore, so do you. There is wisdom in the pause. There is healing in the stillness. And there is power in protecting what God has entrusted to you. Beloved, don't mistake exhaustion for humility. Don't mistake burnout for obedience. The enemy loves it when you are too tired to fight, too drained to pray, too broken to dream. But God's plan is not for you to crawl through life barely making it. His plan is that you would soar like eagles, running and not growing weary, walking and not fainting. That means the season you are stepping into cannot look like the one you just came out of. This is a turning point, a holy crossroads where your personal growth is the key to unlocking everything that's been held back. Think about the woman at the well in John 4. She came carrying an empty jar, weary from her daily struggle, weighed down by shame and rejection. But when she met Jesus, he didn't just give her water for her body, he gave her living water for her soul. She came empty and left overflowing. That is your story too. You've carried burdens so heavy you forgot what it feels like to be light. But Jesus says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." He doesn't just refill your cup, he transforms your entire well. He restores joy where sadness lived. He replaces confusion with clarity. He turns wounds into wisdom. Chosen one, I sense in my spirit that you are on the edge of a breakthrough. The reason you felt so pressed, so drained, is because God is calling you higher, and higher places require lighter baggage. You can't run into abundance while dragging the weight of every person who refused to grow with you. Forgive them, yes, but don't chain yourself to them. Release the past, not because it didn't matter, but because your future matters more. Release the voices that said you weren't enough, because God has already declared you chosen. Release the constant noise that steals your peace, and let His still, small voice guide you. I want you to try something new this week. Take one day where you say no to every unnecessary demand. No to the endless scrolling that drains your focus. No to the phone calls that leave you anxious. No to the habits that keep you small. And instead, say yes to sitting in silence with God. Yes to journaling the dreams He placed on your heart. Yes to walking outside and breathing in creation as a reminder that the same God who clothes the lilies and feeds the sparrows will surely care for you. In those quiet moments, your personal growth will accelerate, because growth doesn't always come from doing more. It comes from allowing God to do more in you. Beloved, this is not just about boundaries, it's about destiny. It's about stepping out of cycles that keep you drained and stepping into rhythms that keep you fueled. The next season of your life will demand clarity, focus, and courage, and you cannot afford to keep giving pieces of yourself away until there is nothing left. God is raising you to be unstoppable, and unstoppable people are not careless with their energy. They are intentional. They pour into what multiplies, not what drains. So here is my testimony. When I finally said no to what was draining me, doors opened I never imagined. God sent connections I didn't seek. He brought opportunities that aligned with my calling, and the joy I thought I lost was rushing back. It was never about me trying harder. It was about me trusting Him enough to let go. That same grace is waiting for you. Reclaim your energy, chosen one. Take your eyes off the distractions and place them on the one who is writing your story. This is your time for personal growth, your season for restoration, your turning point toward abundance. The old ways of depletion are breaking off you now. You are stepping into overflow. And I declare over you the same God who filled Elijah's strength, who gave the woman at the well living water, who renews eagles to soar, is filling you even now. This is your moment to reclaim what was lost and rise into the unstoppable purpose God has always had for you.
The turning point of breakthrough. Here's the truth, beloved. You were standing at a crossroads. You can feel it deep in your spirit, that sense that something has to change, that you can't keep living in the same cycles that leave you empty and worn. If you keep pouring into the same patterns, you will keep reaping the same exhaustion. But if you dare to shift your focus, if you choose to see through the eyes of faith rather than the weight of fear, your next step will not just be forward, it will be unstoppable. Blessings and opportunities are not only near, they are aligning with your growth, your maturity, and your readiness. The prayers you whispered in secret, the tears you cried when no one was watching, the hopes you thought might fade away, heaven has heard them all. But here's the key. Favor flows to those who are positioned with a positive mindset, not those still bound to the things that drain them. Will you make the shift? This turning point is not about striving harder. It's about changing how you see yourself and your future. Romans 12:2 reminds us, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Notice that the breakthrough begins not in your circumstances, but in your thoughts. If your mind stays stuck in defeat, your feet will follow. But if your thoughts rise with hope, gratitude, and vision, then your steps will begin to walk in alignment with what God has already prepared. A positive mindset is not pretending everything is easy. It is choosing to believe that even in difficulty, God is still faithful. It is declaring that every closed door is redirection, not rejection. It is standing on the promises of God, even when your feelings scream the opposite. I remember a season in my own life when I thought everything was falling apart. It felt like every door slammed shut and every plan failed. I could have chosen bitterness. I could have let fear take root. But God gently reminded me of Joseph, who was betrayed, falsely accused, and forgotten in prison, yet carried a mindset of faith. He could have grown bitter, but instead he held on to vision. He believed in God's goodness when everything around him screamed otherwise. And in one day, he went from prisoner to prime minister. That's what a positive mindset anchored in God can do. It positions you to receive breakthrough in a moment that seems impossible. Your turning point is not just about what God is sending your way. It's about whether your spirit is ready to hold it. A positive mindset prepares you to see opportunity where others only see obstacles. It turns the delay into preparation time. It takes what others call a setback and redefines it as a setup. When David faced Goliath, he didn't see a giant too big to defeat. He saw a target too big to miss. That's the power of perspective. And the same God who gave David courage is inviting you to shift how you see what stands before you. Here's something practical you can do this week. Write down 3 things every day that God has already done for you, no matter how small. Gratitude feeds a positive mindset. When you focus on what God has already provided, your spirit becomes more expectant of what He is about to release. And when expectancy rises, faith begins to move mountains. Sometimes the biggest breakthrough is not when your situation changes, but when your outlook does. That's when peace comes in the storm. That's when joy shows up in the waiting. That's when hope becomes the anchor that keeps you steady until the promise manifests. Beloved, you've prayed for favor, and it is on the way. But here's the truth. God's blessings are weighty. They require a heart ready to carry them, not a soul still tangled in resentment or doubt. This is why forgiveness matters. This is why releasing toxic patterns is crucial. Because you cannot step into a new chapter while clutching the chains of the old one. The Lord is saying, I am doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? The new cannot flow where the old still reigns. But when you shift your focus, when you lift your eyes, you begin to notice the signs of breakthrough all around you. You are at a divine turning point. The enemy wants you to see it as just another delay, but heaven calls it preparation. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being aligned. This is the season where God takes the pieces of your past and reshapes them into a platform for your future. What the enemy meant for harm, God is weaving into purpose. What once drained you will no longer define you. You are stepping into new rhythms of rest, clarity, and strength. And the more you nurture a positive mindset, the more you will see doors swing open that you didn't even knock on. I want you to imagine for a moment what life would feel like if you truly believe that God's hand is on your tomorrow. Imagine waking up not with dread, but with expectation. Imagine walking into work not with fear, but with favor. Imagine facing your challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities for God to show Himself strong. That is the shift. That is the breakthrough mindset, and that is what you are being invited into today. So, chosen one, hear this prophetic charge. Your turning point is now. Lift your head, strengthen your heart, reclaim your hope. The same God who parted the Red Sea, who brought water from a rock, who raised the dead, is guiding you into a season of transformation. Do not let the weight of yesterday steal the joy of today. Do not let fear rob you of faith. Shift your focus, cultivate a positive mindset, and step boldly into the unstoppable destiny that has been waiting for you all along.
Rest and obedience in God's presence. Pause for a moment and take a deep breath. How long has it been since you allowed yourself to simply rest without guilt? In a world that praises busyness and measures worth by productivity, it can feel almost wrong to pause. But hear me, God never asked you to carry every burden by yourself. Jesus said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." That is not an invitation to collapse, but a promise of restoration. Rest in His presence is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the place where you stop trying to hold the world on your shoulders and remember that the one who spoke the stars into place is still holding you. Christian mental health is not just about surviving the storms, but learning how to lean into the peace that only God provides. Our minds can become cluttered with anxiety, regret, or the weight of what-ifs. But when you rest in God's presence, your inner chaos begins to settle. Think of Elijah under the broom tree, so weary he prayed for his life to end. Instead of scolding him, God sent an angel with food and rest. God knew Elijah needed restoration before he could continue his mission. That story reminds us that mental health is not outside of God's concern. He cares about your soul, your spirit, and your mind. Stillness in Him is not idle, it is preparation. I know this personally. There were times I kept running, serving, giving, while ignoring my own emptiness. I believed pushing harder made me faithful, but in truth, I was disobedient to God's gentle call to rest. My mind was anxious, my heart heavy, and I found myself praying but not really listening. Then one day, in the quiet of my exhaustion, God reminded me of Psalm 23. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. I realized that sometimes obedience is not doing more, but allowing God to lead you into places of peace. That moment shifted everything. I discovered that rest was not failure, it was faith. When you forgive what needs forgiving, you release yourself from the mental prisons of bitterness. But forgiveness does not mean returning to toxic patterns. God calls you to love, but He also calls you to guard your peace. Obedience is not punishment, it is positioning. Every time you step away from what drains you, you create room for God to fill you with what strengthens you. This is where Christian mental health meets obedience. It's in the courage to let go of what harms your soul and lean into what heals it. Sometimes healing is found not in running, but in stopping. Stillness becomes your strength when you realize it is not inactivity, but alignment with heaven. Let me offer you a new perspective. Have you ever noticed that Jesus often withdrew to lonely places to pray? The Son of God Himself, with crowds pressing on Him, with disciples depending on Him, made intentional time to be alone with the Father. That was not a luxury, it was survival. If even Jesus needed sacred pauses, how much more do we? Christian mental health is cultivated in those moments, when you step away from the noise, silence the pressure, and hear God's whisper louder than the storm. It's not about isolation,
but about connection, about choosing intimacy with God over endless activity. Here's something fresh to consider. Create sacred rituals of rest in your daily life. Maybe it's a short walk where you pray with every step. Maybe it's lighting a candle in the evening and simply sitting in gratitude. Maybe it's writing down your worries in a journal and then praying over them, releasing them to God's care. These small acts become anchors for your mental health because they remind you that you are not alone. The weight you carry is not yours to bear forever. Beloved, your obedience in this season may not look like a dramatic leap of faith. It may look like choosing stillness. It may look like saying no when your soul is already tired. It may look like sitting in silence and allowing the Spirit to breathe fresh life into your weary places. Do not underestimate the power of small, quiet obedience. The Israelites found manna in the morning when they trusted God's instructions to rest on the Sabbath. They discovered that obedience brought provision. You too will find that when you obey God's nudge to pause, He provides peace, beyond understanding. The truth is, your mind cannot thrive under constant chaos. Christian mental health means renewing your mind daily with His Word, protecting your spirit from constant noise, and allowing His presence to restore what anxiety tries to steal. Romans 8 reminds us that the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. This is not just a theological idea, it's a practical reality. The Spirit will guide your thoughts toward hope, your emotions toward healing, and your heart toward joy if you make space for Him. So I say this with urgency and love. Reclaim your rest, chosen one. The enemy wants you distracted, burnt out, too weary to dream. But God is calling you back into His rhythm of grace. He is whispering, lay it down, breathe, trust me. This is not about giving up. This is about rising stronger. Because when you rest in His presence, when you align your mind and heart with His Word, you don't just find peace, you find power. And that power will carry you into the next breakthrough.
Divine favor and unexpected connections, chosen ones, let me speak this into your spirit. When you stop scattering your energy on things that drain you and begin to walk in alignment with God's plan, something shifts in the atmosphere. The heavens respond to your surrender. Doors you never even knocked on begin to swing open. People you never imagined meeting suddenly cross your path. Opportunities that looked out of reach start showing up in your hands. This is what divine favor looks like. It is not the result of hustling harder, but of resting deeper in God's timing. It is not about striving, but about surrendering. Favor is not earned like a paycheck. It is released like a promise. I have experienced this in my own life. There was a season when I believed that if I just worked harder, stayed up later, said yes to everyone, I could create the breakthrough I longed for. Instead, I ended up exhausted, drained, and disappointed. But when I finally chose to trust God, when I released the constant need to prove myself, something remarkable happened. People I had never met began reaching out with opportunities I didn't chase. Connections formed that I could never have orchestrated. That was not coincidence. It was God showing me that His favor is greater than my effort. That's when I learned the truth of Proverbs 18:16. A person's gift makes room for them and brings them before the great. It wasn't my striving that made room for me. It was God's hand moving on my behalf. Think about Joseph. His brothers sold him, his name was slandered, he was thrown into prison. By every natural measure, his life was over. But divine favor was written into his story. God positioned him not only to interpret Pharaoh's dream, but to be elevated to a place of authority. The same people who betrayed him later had to come to him for survival. That's the nature of God's favor. It doesn't just restore you, it elevates you to a place where even those who discounted you must witness what God is doing in your life. And here's the powerful part. Joseph never had to prove his worth to anyone. God Himself proved Joseph right. This is what I want you to understand. Divine favor is never just about you. It overflows to those around you. When Ruth aligned herself with Naomi, her obedience positioned her to encounter Boaz. That divine connection not only blessed her, but secured a lineage that would lead to King David and ultimately to Jesus Christ. One act of obedience, one unexpected connection, became a generational blessing. You may think your steps are small, but in God's eyes, they are significant. Your obedience today may be the seed that blossoms into someone else's breakthrough tomorrow. This is not about proving anyone wrong. It's not about showing your doubters what you can do. That mindset keeps you trapped in the same cycles of needing validation. Favor isn't about showing off. It's about showing God's glory. You are not called to live in resentment, but in abundance. And abundance flows best when you live to prove God right, not people wrong. That's why Ephesians 3:20 says He can do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. His favor will exceed your expectations, not to make you look good, but to make Him known through your life. Here's something fresh to try in your own journey. Instead of chasing every opportunity, start asking God each morning, who do you want me to meet today? What door do you want me to walk through? Carry a small notebook and jot down the names, nudges, or places He puts on your heart. Divine connections often arrive as whispers before they become visible. When you look back, you'll see a pattern of how He guided you. That practice not only strengthens your faith, but also nurtures a mindset of expectation. And expectation is the soil where divine favor takes root. I believe many of you are standing in the same place Esther stood when Mordecai said, "Perhaps you were born for such a time as this." God has positioned you in places you didn't plan for, a purpose you can't yet see. He is weaving relationships, aligning moments, and orchestrating divine encounters that will reveal His hand. And though it may feel uncomfortable, remember that favor often arrives disguised as responsibility. The opportunity may look overwhelming, but that is how you know it's God. He calls you into spaces where only His strength can sustain you. This is why Christian motivational speech isn't about hype or empty encouragement. It is about reminding you of the truth, that you are not walking alone, that God's hand is on your life, and that what He opens, no man can shut. You may feel overlooked now, but His favor is working behind the scenes. You may feel small, but your obedience is setting you up for something mighty. And when it unfolds, it won't just bless you. It will touch your family, your community, even generations to come. So I charge you today, reclaim your energy, protect your peace, and align yourself with God's voice. Stop chasing every open door and let God open the right ones. Stop giving so much weight to the people who doubted you and start giving glory to the one who called you. Because on the other side of your obedience is favor you didn't earn, opportunities you didn't expect, and connections you couldn't arrange. This is the season where God is going to prove Himself faithful through your life. And when it happens, even those who once overlooked you will see that it was never about you trying harder. It was always about Him showing up bigger.
Courage to step forward. You may feel fear rising in your chest. You may feel uncertainty swirling around your thoughts, whispering that you are not ready, that you are not strong enough, that you might fail if you try. But hear me, chosen one. Every miracle in Scripture required someone to move before they felt prepared. Abraham left his home without knowing where he was going. Moses stretched his staff before the waters parted. Peter stepped out of the boat while the waves were still raging. None of them had clarity before they moved, but all of them had courage to take the first step. And that first step became the doorway to breakthrough. Today, heaven is extending an invitation to you. Reclaim your energy. Guard your focus. Rise with holy courage and take the step that fear has been trying to keep you from taking. This is not another cycle of exhaustion. You are not being called to wear yourself out trying to prove your worth. You are stepping into a season of breakthrough. But breakthrough never comes in the comfort zone. It comes when you trust God enough to move forward even when the path looks uncertain. Joshua and the Israelites had to step into the Jordan River before it parted. Their feet touched the edge of the water, and only then did God release the miracle. Your miracle, too, is waiting on the other side of movement. I know what it feels like to hesitate. I have stood at the edge of decisions with my knees trembling and my mind racing with doubts. There was a time when God asked me to step out in faith, to walk away from a place that felt safe but was draining my soul. Every part of me wanted to stay because at least I knew the pain I was in. The unknown felt terrifying. But when I finally obeyed, when I took the first step, even with fear in my heart, I encountered provision I could not have imagined. People showed up to help. Opportunities I never expected appeared. Peace settled over me in ways I had not felt in years. That was not because I was brave. It was because God was faithful, and He will be faithful to you too. This moment is more than a decision. It is a spiritual awakening. When you step forward, you awaken to who you really are in Christ. You remember that you are not defined by fear, but by faith. You discover strength you didn't know you carried. You realize that courage is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear have the final word. A spiritual awakening is when the eyes of your soul open wider than the doubts of your mind. It is when you begin to see yourself as heaven already sees you, chosen, equipped, and capable of walking into new beginnings. Think about Gideon. He called himself the least in his family, too weak to make a difference. But God called him a mighty warrior. And when Gideon finally believed and took the step forward, he led an army to victory. The courage to step forward awakened the truth of who he was. That is the same awakening waiting for you. God already calls you more than a conqueror. The question is, will you step forward into the name He has spoken over you? Here is something fresh you can do. Each morning, before the world fills your mind with noise, place your hand over your heart and say, God, awaken me today. Then write down one step you can take, no matter how small, that moves you closer to obedience. It might be making a phone call, applying for a position, forgiving someone who hurt you, or simply resting when He tells you to rest. These small steps, repeated daily, build a rhythm of courage, and courage grows as you practice it. Beloved, your breakthrough does not require you to have it all figured out. It only requires you to trust the one who already does. Spiritual awakening comes when you realize you do not walk alone. The same God who split seas, who shut lions' mouths, who raised the dead is walking beside you. And if He is with you, no fear can overtake you. This is the time to silence the lies that say you are not enough. You are more than enough with Him. The fear you feel is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that you are on the edge of something holy. So I declare over you right now, this is your season of courage. This is your moment of awakening. Step forward even if your voice shakes, even if your hands tremble, even if your heart races. The miracle is already waiting on the other side of your obedience. And when you step into it, you will not just find blessing, you will find yourself. You will find the version of you God always saw when He called you chosen. This is not the end. This is the beginning of a new chapter filled with breakthrough, abundance, and divine favor. Take the step. Trust His voice. Let this moment be the turning point where fear loses its hold and faith carries you forward. You are not stepping into another cycle of exhaustion. You are stepping into a spiritual awakening where courage becomes your song and breakthrough becomes your testimony.
So let me leave you with this. You are not walking alone, and you are not forgotten. You are chosen ones, set apart for such a time as this, called to rise above the noise and to step into a future overflowing with God's favor. Every tear, every delay, every disappointment has been preparing you for this moment of awakening. If this message stirred something in your heart, type in the comments, "I am reclaiming my energy." That is your prophetic declaration today, a signal to heaven that you are stepping into new strength and new peace. I want to pause here to say thank you. Thank you for giving your time, for opening your heart, and for allowing me to speak into your journey. Your presence here matters, and your willingness to listen is proof that God is already at work in you. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Spiritual Journals and turn on the notifications. This is where we walk together, where chosen ones rise, where faith and mindfulness meet, where we lean into God's presence with clarity and courage. I bless you right now. May your mind be steady, your spirit be calm, and your path be filled with unexpected favor. May mindfulness keep you anchored in the present, and may God's promises guide every step you take. May you rest in His presence and rise with renewed strength. Go in peace, chosen one, because your breakthrough is closer than you think.